Hi, I'm Katie. Welcome back. What a beautiful place. Wouldn't you just love to sit down and read a book here? Or even better, let's talk about a reading skill. Students often tell me that the most difficult thing about reading is encountering words that are new and unknown. What's the best way to handle this? Well, hello, bird friend. What's that? Interesting. You say the answer is not about those new words that we don't know? So, yes, please continue. What's it about? Looks like that bird had to keep hopping along before finishing that thought. But I'm very sure that we can figure out the best strategy together. Let's continue on this path. Someone's left us a book. Let's start reading it and see what happens when we come across a word we don't know. So before we discuss this, take a moment to read it yourself. Hit the pause button to take the time that you need. Your experience might have been something like this. You were reading along. Everything was making sense and you were feeling good. Then suddenly, you came across a word that you don't know. That word might have demanded your attention and made you pause from reading. It might have become scarier and scarier not to know the meaning of that word. And you may have begun to lose focus on all of the other words on the page. Well, let's try a different approach, perhaps one you sometimes already use. How about we first stop giving that word power to scare us and stop us from reading? Instead, can we see it as something friendlier? Or even better, let it just be a blank space on the page to be filled with meaning. And let's bring back the other words. They're very important. We call them the context. And they can help us guess the new word. They limit the possible meanings of the unknown word because all of the words need to make sense together. Here are a few more tips. They all relate to this main piece of advice about the context. First, identify the part of speech of the new word. This can help narrow down possible meanings. This particular sentence structure is a little more complicated than some would be, but we can still determine this word is an adjective. First, adjectives are one type of word that commonly follow how. Furthermore, adjectives can complete a subject plus be verb structure, which is what we have here through this advanced indirect question construction. Knowing that this word is an adjective allows us to understand that we're describing it, which refers to learning a new language. This definitely helps guide us to the correct meaning. Next, let's also consider the main idea. If you know what the main idea is, you can think about how the unknown word would support that general meaning. By the way, if you'd like to know more about main idea, check out my video on that topic next. In this case, although we can't see the complete text, there does seem to be a topic sentence that suggests that the main idea is related to how learning a new language can be difficult. So we should look for a meaning for the unknown word that supports that idea. Finally, a variety of context clues can help us get even closer to the meaning. This topic is large enough to get its own focus in a future video. So let's just look at what we can use here. One type of clue that we sometimes find is a synonym of the unknown word. Synonyms are words that have the same meaning. In this case, given the main idea and part of speech, it seems likely that the unknown word is a synonym of difficult. So using this approach has helped us understand the meaning of the unknown word as something similar to difficult or challenging. By the way, if you were thinking of looking it up in a dictionary, Claramope is not a real word. But it let us explore the concept in the same way as if it had been one, and ensured that I didn't choose an example word that some of you already knew. Let's summarize those tips and add one more. First, just relax. Don't let that new word scare you. Second, sometimes it becomes easier to guess the word's meaning if you imagine it as a blank space. Next, think about the context. Use the context to determine the word's part of speech. Think about the reading's main idea and how the unknown word fits in. And finally, look for context clues, such as synonyms. Additionally, another tip is that at times you may just want to ignore the unknown word. Occasionally, you'll find that even when you follow this process, there just won't be enough clues available to guess the new word. However, you may still understand the general idea and can continue reading without using a dictionary to find the word's meaning. Whether or not you do this depends on your purpose for reading and just how well you need to understand every detail. It also depends on the amount of time you have available to read. If you don't have a lot of available time and you understand the main points, you may choose to do this before you even take the time to try to guess using the context. Okay, let's continue. We still have a couple more questions to answer about this topic. In this case, we had just one new word, but what do we do if there are many unknown words? And also, when is it appropriate to use a dictionary? Just one request before we move on. If this video has been helping you so far, please subscribe to the channel. Your support will definitely help it grow. Okay, let's continue on and check out a reading passage with many unknown words in it. Well, that was a little scary, right? Most readers would naturally feel overwhelmed when encountering so many unknown words in a reading. When looking closely at the text, we can see why. This is the same text we read earlier, but in this version, there isn't enough context left to help us make good guesses about all the words we don't know. One concept about learning a new language explains that we learn best when the difficulty level is just one step above our current level. But with as many unknown words as there are in this text, we are trying to comprehend something that is definitely more than one step above. Some research says that we need to know about 95% of the words in order to comprehend main points and make good guesses about new words. Taking a look at our text confirms this. We still have about 70% of the words, and you can see how difficult it is to understand. Of course, there will be some variation to the exact percentage needed, depending on your purpose for reading, as well as the types of words that are new. Let's look at two examples to illustrate this point. In each text, you probably know about 80% of the words, but one will likely cause less confusion. Hit pause and take a moment to read both of them. Okay, so in which one could you more easily get the main points and make guesses about the unknown words? I'm guessing it was the first one. The first text appears to be part of a story. Our purpose for reading stories is usually to have fun, meaning that As long as we can understand the main events, we can continue reading without understanding every bit of description. In here, half of the missing words are adjectives, words that describe. We can get the general sense of what kind of information they may be adding without needing to know their exact meaning. The meaning of the unknown nouns and verbs in this reading are also easier to guess, given the words that we do know. However, you'd likely find it difficult to make the recipe in the second text. When following a recipe to cook something, our purpose is different. We need a more exact understanding to follow the steps correctly. Also, in this example, the unknown words are very important nouns and verbs that tell us what ingredients to add and what to do with them. There aren't many clues for guessing what they mean, and without them, it's hard to follow the recipe. Therefore, when you have the choice, if a reading has so many unknown words that you can't meet your goals for understanding, it would be best to try other reading material with a higher percentage of words that you do know. In other words, when you can, avoid readings that are too many steps above your current level. At times, though, we have to read something, even if the vocabulary is too difficult. What should we do then? In that case, it might be best to involve a dictionary. Let's talk now about how to best use one. You may find yourself needing to use a dictionary for a couple of different reasons. As we just discussed, you may be required to read something too difficult for your current level. And also, occasionally you'll find an isolated unknown word that is very important to the main point and that can't be guessed from the context. Here are some guidelines for using a dictionary effectively. First of all, don't think that you'll be reading as quickly when you involve a dictionary. It will definitely slow down your reading process. Second, choose a good English to English dictionary. Translations are not always effective because they can't as precisely get at the meaning of the word and show how it varies in use from similar words. Also, choose a dictionary in which the definitions are clear and contain vocabulary that is simpler than the word you're looking up. I recommend the Longman Online Dictionary to my students because of its clear definitions and helpful example sentences. Next, and very importantly, don't stop reading immediately when you find a word that you don't know. I recommend continuing to read the whole paragraph and sometimes even the page, but at the very least, finish the sentence and read the next couple after it. This will provide the context for understanding the word and comprehending the text. Words have more than one meaning, and you want to make sure that you find the definition that makes sense within the context. Finally, use a dictionary for only the words that are most necessary to get the main points. Limiting the number of words that you look up will interrupt your reading process less. Well, we're back to where we started, and here's our friend again. I think we can now finish her thought. When dealing with unknown words in a reading, it isn't about the words that we don't know. It's about the words that we do know. This is in two ways. First, if there are not enough words that we do know, it would be best to choose something else to read, when possible. And second, when we do know most of the words, we should use them as the context for making guesses about unknown words. So when you find a word that you don't know, don't let it scare you. Instead, let the words that you know support your understanding of the reading. There's still a lot more to discuss regarding strategies for using the context. So please subscribe for a future video on that topic. In the meantime, you can share your own strategies in the comments. I've enjoyed exploring this topic with you, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the path.